Good evening, ladies and geraniums. We're heading to the shop tonight. Yes, we are. Good evening. Earlier today in the mail, actually this morning, I received a package from BUZZ1151. I had already opened it, but the video got messed up, so I'm redoing the video. It didn't come out as good as I wanted it to. I redo it. But anyways, part of this video was made, was made about 11:45 this morning. Buzz sent me a nice sign for my radio shop door. And there it is right there. We're doing this particular part of the video over again, as I didn't like the way I started it out and it became too long-winded. And I started editing it, and by the time I got to chopping out the long-winded parts, I said I might as well do the whole thing over again. Buzz, I want to thank you very much for sending me this. I appreciate it. It really brings some class to the shop here. It is now 8:05 in the evening. Buzz says, "Old Goat, I think this will look good on the door of your shop. Happy B-Day, Buzz." Well, you're 3 months too early, Buzz, for my birthday. It's not until December. But again, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Now I want to try to answer some comments by way of video. On the Gordo's unit here, John Svita had a good idea. He had mentioned some of these voice-activated toys, which I don't recall seeing any around, could probably activate the Gordo's unit where the push button is right here. That's a good idea, and I will keep that in mind, John. But the problem is, I really don't want this to be actually voice activated. It could be, but with voice activation you don't get an instant response unless I clear my throat constantly and then start talking to get the voice activation going. So I'd rather not use a voice activated thing. But maybe something in a toy or something that would have the, I guess what they call op amps. I'm not very familiar with that stuff. I've dilly-dallied around with those way back many years ago when I was a young man and in my prime, and I'd chase all the women most all the time. Yeah, right, big dreamer. Anyways, no. But anyways, that idea is good, and I will keep that in mind, John. Thank you. I'm trying to go from memory, because I have a bad habit of not writing things down, and when I do, I can't even read my own writing. So we are going to work with ideas like that. It's just that I don't want to spend $15, $20, $30 for a toy that I'm going to cut up and, you know, and do something like that with. I'd rather spend the money when I do get it for an amplifier that will drive this 12-volt relay here, which is 150 ohms DC coil resistance, 12-volt DC coil. And this is the one I showed you earlier on the last video, the HD video. I'm not recording this in HD. because I want to try to get this rendered and uploaded tonight before I turn in, which I usually shut down about 10:30 at night. So that's an option. It's experimental, and I want to see if I can get an audio amplifier, because I know the cassette recorder player is not going to drive this relay. It's not going to put out the voltage and power that is needed to drive this relay. So you really need a power amplifier. And there's a lot of amplifiers out there that you can get from China that put out a lot of power. I never could understand it, and I'm not going to get into trying to learn. But I guess they have what they call Class D amplifiers, and they put out a ridiculous amount of power, like 50 watts, 100 watts, on a unit that's probably 1/4 the size of this whole board right here. And I find that impossible to believe. I mean, you know, I had a Sony receiver back in 1975 that put out 55 watts RMS, and the damn thing weighed about 30 pounds, solid state. And that was 55 watts RMS into an 8 ohm load with so much distortion. But anyways, if I can get a 20 watt, a small 20 watt, preferably monaural amplifier, and the thing probably wouldn't be much larger than this Gordo unit right here, to power this relay, and in turn would trigger in here, and then maybe I can get that solenoid to work. But we still got to get Dorkel out on the bench, and Dorkel is not going to go out on the bench until the weather cools down. It's supposed to be gorgeous this weekend, so if I get some time squeezed in on there, I may just do that. I want to open this thing up for you, because John Speeder also made a comment that I can put some kind of a cable in here. He mentioned that. I had thought of that too, John, but the problem is, if you run a cable in here like this was originally designed to operate, and you come out to a pulley, well, first, there's 2 bad reasons why I can't do that. One, I don't have the room in the Dorkel body. You bring a cable out here, you'd have to come out maybe about here, and you have to keep tension on this, which would mean heavy springs or something to hold that cable tight around your pulley. I don't like that idea. I don't like it at all. This nut is 5/16, as I recall. I had it off. I'm going to open this up. I'm going to set this camera on a tripod. It's not HD. I won't be able to get you close, but you'll be able to see enough anyways. Let me get you on a tripod and show you what I want to do on this. Because as I said on the other video, I've got my mind working on the audio driving circuit for the mouth, in addition to coming up with something to lift his arm up once I make the arm lighter, which I can do. It's just that I got to do these things outside on a bench. So let me get you set up on a tripod, and I will be right back. I promise. I'm not going anywhere. Okay, get my carcass over here. I got my 1/4-inch nut driver set here that I've had probably 40 years. Okay, this is a 5/16 nut, I believe. Yep, 5/16 nut. So the bolt is probably a 3/16. Okay, let me show you how this comes apart here. Alright, the nut comes off of this, and on this side here, this pops out. They make a liar out of me now. Okay, there it goes. Okay, if you look here, and you may or may not see that. Let me see if I can get you a little magnification here. Look in the center, it's got like a hole with flat sides on each part of it. Well, that's got to fit into this thing here, fits in there. Okay. All right, so the way this works is your cable goes in here, and I guess it's friction grabs onto here, and it's pulled through as this is rotating, and this cannot spin because it's in here. Now I'm going to take this out. All right, this is the center wheel that would go into here like this. Okay, so this is locked in when it fits in there. See that? All right, so the part that actually turns is this centerpiece here, which I'm going to remove. Okay, and it's loaded with grease in there. And this is a gear, plastic gear, and it's driven by a worm gear at the shaft of the motor that you may or may not see with this camera. So hopefully with this magnifying glass you can see a worm gear down at the bottom. I hope you can see that. So this thing is driven, it's in here like this. Okay, there are 3 notches in the hard rubber. This is very hard. It does flex, but it's a firm rubber. I don't want to get any grease on it. It grabs onto these 3 little wings here. See that? So as this gear turns, the plastic gear turns this here, okay, which in turn turns this piece, which goes in here, and when you turn that back here, you can get that to drop in. You just spin it around and until it goes in, and I have to do that off camera so I can see what I'm doing here. All right, let's see. Make sure you're in camera here. All right, so let me connect this up. All right, you see how that runs? This is the part that pulls the cable through. Oh, why is that making noise like that? That didn't do that before. We can't have that in Dorkle, making that noise. Well, anyways, that's how it works. So what I was figuring on doing, take this part off again. I was figuring on doing on this here, I looked through my nuts and bolts, and this looks like a fine thread. It's very small. It's not 5/16 and not a quarter. I think it's 3/16 or something like that. So there is probably a little less than a 1/4 inch of stud coming out here. So I was going to take this nut, as I did here, take it off, and get a coupler. Probably like, you know, like when you want to put 2 pieces of threaded rod together, you use a coupler. But I'm hoping I can get a coupler at least 2.5 inches long. I don't think I'm going to get one. Absolute minimum of 1.5 inches. And screw that on and tighten that up. That'll replace the nut. And then I can make a pulley. Part of the pulley, 1/2 of the pulley side will be here for this base plate. Then you have your coupler, and then I'll have a washer on the outside, and then I'll put a bolt of this diameter here, whatever it is, on the top, a small bolt. Tighten that down, and that'll become a pulley. And the pulley, if I can get a washer as big as the diameter of this, which is, let me see if I'm still in camera here. Yeah, it's a lot. I do a lot better videos with the SR12, but not at 1.89 gigabytes on that 44-minute film that I made with the HDR SR12. And by the time Sony Movie Studio got done rendering it, would you believe that that file size bloomed to 5.5 gigabytes? Now you see why I don't like HD. It took me 3 hours, exactly 3 hours to render that HD video in Sony Movie Studio 13. And it took me about 1 hour and 10 minutes to upload it. Alright, this is a 2-inch pulley. Okay, I don't know why this is screaming like that. But let's take that out. See if it still screams. Running good now. But see, you need this other part because it holds things together. But this turns, and the battery's running down here. That draws quite a bit of power, and that battery needs charging anyways. But in order to keep, you know, there's going to be a lot of lateral pressure on the pulley, the shaft coming out here. There's going to be a lot of lateral shaft, or a lot of pressure. When you're pulling on this thing, you're pulling and winding the cord that goes to this arm around a small diameter shaft, which means as slow as this is turning, it's turning on a small shaft, probably 3/8 of an inch, no more than 1/2 inch in diameter, and it's winding the rope around. So there's going to be a high ratio, which is very good for giving a lot of torque. But I have no idea why this thing was hollering like a banshee. But as you can see, if you take this part out, this is the main drive right here. See? Because all that is a plastic nylon gear driven with a worm gear. So, anyways, we'll put this back together off camera here, and that's my idea. That's my method for doing that. I would much rather get a motor that had a regular gear drive on it, and not this arrangement here, but beggars can't be choosers, as they say. So let me get this back together and we'll move on with this video. Okay, back to normal. Maybe I didn't have that in all the way. Alright, so we got to charge this battery here. And we'll stick it on a 1 amp trickle charger in the other shed. We'll do that. So, anyways, so the battery I just brought out into the other shed and I put it on the 1 amp trickle charger, which is what I usually do with these gel cells, and they work quite well. So this thing will work out good for the arm, and like I say, I'm drifting around, because I'm drifty anyway, so that's beside the point. I'm drifting around between that, the mount trigger on the Gordos, which is actually down on the floor in the box out of the way right now, and this. So all I got to do is go down to my hardware store and get well, I got to take this nut off and find out. Rather than to carry this whole thing, I'll just take the nut off and try another bolt out of my junk box that this nut will fit on good, and then get a coupler to put in there and make up my own pulley. Thanks for watching, everybody, and thank you, Buzz, once again for that great sign. I really love it.